My parents retired to Spain, and, for a while, it felt like they'd retired from me too. The moment I really knew something had shifted wasn't some big fight or dramatic phone call. It was a photo. I was standing in line at the grocery store, phone in one hand, basket in the other. It was February. Slush on the ground, grey sky. Everyone in the queue wearing the same dreary winter coat in 3 different shades. My phone buzzed. Mum, look at us. Attached was a picture. My parents sat at a sunlit cafe table somewhere in southern Spain. Palm trees, blue sky, a glass of cold white wine in my mum's hand, a beer in my dad's. They were both wearing sunglasses and big, loose smiles I hadn't seen in years. Between them, taking the selfie, was a woman I didn't know. Blonde, tanned, maybe mid-50s. Her head leaned in toward my dad's shoulder like it belonged there. I stared at the screen. No caption explaining who she was. No, wish you were here. No, how are you? Just, look at us. Behind me, someone's baby started crying. The cashier's scanner beeped. Outside, a bus hissed by in a cloud of grey exhaust. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Looks great, Mum. Who's that? You guys look happy. Wow. You're really living your best life while I defrost my socks in England. I didn't type any of those. Instead, I locked my phone, paid for my groceries, and walked back to my flat through the drizzle. Upstairs, I put the shopping away on autopilot. Milk in the fridge, eggs in the door, pasta in the cupboard I always meant to organise. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, opened the photo again, and zoomed in. Mum's skin was browner than I'd ever seen it. Her hair, usually a neat helmet back home, was a little messy, sun-frizzed. She looked relaxed. Dad's shoulders were loose. No tension in his jaw. No tired droop in his eyes. He'd always said he'd be happier somewhere warm. I was born on the wrong island, he'd joke. Should have been Spanish. The stranger between them had her hand resting casually on the table, close to his. Too close to be nothing. Not quite touching. Almost. My heart did a weird flip. I scrolled up through our chat. The last text they'd sent me before this had been 5 days earlier. Mum, can't talk now at the market, very busy. We'll ring later. Kix. They didn't ring. I thumbed back further. Before that, a short video of fireworks over the sea at New Year's. Before that, a blurry shot of them with a group of laughing people on a terrace. Our tapas gang, Mum had written, like that should mean something to me. Sprinkled between their sunny updates were my own messages. Hey, just had the performance review. Dad, can you remind me what day your cardiology appointment is? Mum, I might come out in April. What do you think? Most of those had been met with emojis or, sorry missed this, hours later. Their new life in Spain seemed to exist in high definition. Mine, back in Manchester, was in grainy black and white. For months, I'd told myself they were just busy, settling in, making friends, adjusting to retirement in another country. But sitting there on my bed, staring at that photo, one thought finally pushed its way to the front of my mind and refused to leave. My parents retired to Spain and forgot they still had a daughter. This is the story of how that happened, how far it went, and what it took to remember each other again, across 2 countries, 3 time zones in summer, and a lot of hurt we didn't want to look at. Chapter 1. The Dream That Didn't Include Me. My parents had been talking about Spain since I was 12, not in a serious spreadsheets and mortgages way, in a dreamy, one-day way. We would be watching some travel show on TV, sunset over the Alhambra, old men playing cards in a square, people eating dinner outside at 10 at night. And Dad would sigh. "Look at that," he'd say. "That's a proper life. None of this grey dreck. Just sun, olives, vino, job done." Mum would smile and say, "We're not moving to Spain, Tony." "Not now," he'd reply. "But when we retire? Why not? Sell the house, buy a little place near the sea. No more scraping ice off the car. No more heating bills that give you a heart attack." He'd say it like a joke, but the older I got, the more detailed the fantasy became. He started keeping a notebook. Research, he called it. Lists of towns. Nerja, Javea, Almuñécar. Pros and cons of the Costa del Sol versus the Costa Blanca. Notes about cost of living, property prices, expat communities. Mum pretended to roll her eyes, but she cut out magazine articles about your dream retirement abroad and left them on the coffee table. "You could always visit for your holidays," she'd say to me. "Cheap accommodation, built-in tour guides." Back then, I liked the idea. I pictured myself in my 20s, flying down for a week when work got too much. Beach by day, wine with my parents on a balcony at night. It was something solid and warm to tuck away in the future drawer in my head. We never talked about what it would mean for them to leave. We never talked about what it would be like for me to be here, in England, without them an hour's drive away. We certainly never talked about what they'd do with their lives once I wasn't the centre of theirs. In our version of the story, I think we all assumed some things would stay the same. Phone calls, advice, birthdays, us. They'd just be in better weather. Then life happened, like it does. I went to university in Leeds, then stayed for a job. They stayed in the same semi-detached house, in the same suburb they'd been in since before I was born. Dad's hair went greyer. Mum's shoulders rounded a little from decades of leaning over desks and sinks and steering wheels. The Spain plan moved from joke to possibility. "Another redundancy round," Dad said one Sunday lunch, stabbing his potatoes with unnecessary force. "They want us all to do the work of 3 people until we drop dead at our desks. Sod that. I'm 58. I'm not dying in that office." Mum nodded, eyes tired. "My school's no better," she said. 14-year-olds throwing chairs, no support. Parents threatening to sue because little Braden got told off for vaping in the toilets. "You could change schools," I said. "I could change countries," she replied. "That seems more effective." We laughed. Then, one autumn, Dad had a mild heart scare, not a full heart attack. An incident, they called it. Enough to land him in hospital for a couple of nights, wired up, beeping. I sat on the chair next to his bed and watched him sleep, his face slack without its usual animation. Mum sat on his other side, hands clasped in her lap. "You need to slow down," I said when he woke up. He smiled weakly. "That's exactly what the doctor said," he replied. "Well, that, and maybe swap bacon for tomatoes once in a while." After he came home, the Spain talk got serious. They started going on inspection trips, cheap off-season flights to Malaga, a week looking at flats with terracotta roofs, walking along promenades lined with orange trees. They came back with tans, fridge magnets, and photos of properties. In one of them, Mum stood on a small balcony with white railings, the sea a strip of blue behind her. "This one has a lift," she said. "Good for when we're old and creaky." "You're already old and creaky," I said. "It suits you." They swatted me. We laughed. But something in her eyes said, "This is real now." We had the talk one Sunday after dinner. I was 26. They were both 61. The plates were stacked by the sink. The kettle had just clicked off. The TV murmured quietly in the other room. "We put an offer in," Dad said. My stomach did a small flip. "On which one?" I asked, aiming for casual and missing. "The top floor flat with the lift," Mum said. "In Estepona. The one with the view of the sea if you lean out a bit and squint." "Nice," I said, my voice thin. "When will you know, move?" "We're thinking next year," Dad said. "If all goes to plan. We've been running the numbers. Selling the house here will cover the flat there and leave a bit aside." I nodded, doing quick maths in my own head. House money, pensions, savings, the slow, careful stack of their lives being cashed in for sunshine. "We wanted to talk to you about it properly," Mum said. "Make sure you're okay." There it was. The script. "Of course I'm okay," I said too quickly. "It's your life. You've been talking about this forever. You deserve it." Some part of me meant it. I remembered their years of night shifts, parent-teacher evenings, packed lunches, cheap holidays in caravans because that's what we could afford. If anyone had earned a seat in a Spanish cafe with a cold drink, it was them. Another part of me, the quieter, less generous part, it felt suddenly like a kid who'd been told her parents were going on holiday without her. "We'll come back all the time," Mum said, "and you'll visit. We'll probably end up seeing more of you than we do now. You're always too busy for us as it is." She said it lightly. A joke, but it landed. "It's only a 3-hour flight," Dad added. "That's less than it takes us to drive here and back when the M6 is being daft. People act like Spain is Mars. It's not." "Yeah," I said. "Totally." They told me about healthcare arrangements, about residency papers, about how there were more Brits than Spanish in some of the bars, so they'd be fine. I nodded at the right moments. I didn't ask the questions stuck in my throat. Things like, "What if one of you gets really sick? Who will call me? Do you expect me to move there too? What happens to us?" Instead, I drove home that night with the radio off, the motorway lights blurring. At a service station, I pulled over, sat in my parked car, and let myself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then I wiped my face, checked my reflection in the mirror, and told myself what everyone tells themselves when their parents make big choices. They've earned this. Don't be selfish. I repeated it on the day they moved. I repeated it at the airport, hugging them near the oversized luggage conveyor. I repeated it to friends when they asked if I was okay with my parents abandoning me for the Costa del Sunshine. "Honestly," I said, "I'm happy for them." And I was. Mostly. What I didn't realize was that somewhere between "we'll miss you" at the departure gate and "look at us" from Spanish cafes, something fragile between us would get stretched so thin it would almost snap. Chapter 2. WhatsApp from Another World. At first, everything was exciting. The first months of their Spanish life were narrated in real time. Photos of their empty flat before the furniture arrived. Videos of Dad attempting to order coffee in Spanish and accidentally asking for 8 instead of 2. Voice notes from Mum describing the local market. "So many tomatoes, Anna. The smell, you can't imagine." They learned to say "buenos dias" with the right rhythm. They sent selfies with their new neighbours. They joined what they called, with a mix of amusement and affection, the expat circus. A loose community of Brits and other foreigners orbiting the same few bars and clubs. "There's quiz night on Tuesdays," Mum said in one call, the sound of clinking glasses behind her. Yoga on the beach Wednesdays, tapas crawl Fridays. It's brilliant. No one's in a rush. Except the drivers, Dad shouted in the background. They're bloody maniacs. I'd put them on loudspeaker and potter around my Manchester kitchen while they talked, half listening, half fascinated. They described sunsets like postcards. They laughed more. They sounded lighter. Come visit, Mum said every week. We've got the spare room set up now. The neighbour's daughter came last month. She didn't want to leave. I will, I said. Work is busy at the moment. Work was always busy. It didn't help that my boss had the emotional intelligence of a stapler and the expectations of a Bond villain. We're all hands on deck this quarter, she'd say. You can take a proper break in the summer. Summer came and went. I took 3 days off and spent them on my sofa, sleeping like I'd been drugged. Spain stayed on my phone, glowing behind WhatsApp notifications. They sent photos from village festivals, giant papier-mâché figures, fireworks, kids covered in confetti. I sent back photos of my desk, my coffee, my cat. They called. Sometimes I missed the calls, in meetings, on the tram, in the shower. Sorry, can't talk right now, I'd text. Love you, call later? Sometimes later happened, sometimes it didn't. The time difference wasn't huge. 1 hour most of the year, 2 when the clocks did something weird. But that small gap felt bigger when layered over new routines. Their evenings were my afternoons. Their mornings were my commutes. We kept missing each other. Time zones are a pain, Dad said once, when we finally caught each other on a Sunday afternoon. We need a system, like we're in different hemispheres. You could just answer when I call, I said, half joking. He laughed. Ah, the cheek, he said. Says Miss Voicemail herself. We fell into a pattern of near misses. They'd ring while I was out with friends. I'd ring back when they were at some event. Messages replaced conversations. Mum, at the Feria, look at these lights. Me, so pretty. I'm in Aldi. They talked about new friends with the ease of people who had found their tribe. David and Sarah are coming round tomorrow, Mum said. They're from Birmingham. You'd like them. Very funny. Their daughter is about your age, lives in Canada. Is everyone out there retired? I asked. Mostly, she said. A few younger ones, people who work remotely. Lucky things. We have a thing on Thursdays at the Irish pub. God, the number of Irish pubs here. Everyone brings a dish. I made my shepherd's pie. It was a big hit. They became, unmistakably, part of a new ecosystem. One where I existed as an anecdote. Our Anna, back in Manchester. She works in marketing. She might come out in the spring. Sometimes I'd hear someone in the background ask, "How's your daughter?" And Mum would answer breezily, "Oh, she's fine. Always busy." Always busy. The two words that had become armour and accusation all at once. Months passed. I still hadn't visited. It wasn't just work. It was money. Flights. The guilt of spending on a holiday when my car needed servicing and my rent had gone up. And if I was honest with myself, something else. Fear. Fear of seeing, up close, a life that didn't need me. Fear of sitting on their new balcony and realizing I'd been replaced by the tapas gang and quiz nights and women whose names I'd only heard in passing. It was easier to keep them in my phone. Then came Christmas. Chapter 3. A Spanish Christmas and a British breakdown. We're not coming back this year, Mum said in October while I was stirring sauce on my stove. I paused. What? I asked. For Christmas, she said. Flights are ridiculous, and your father says he's not spending a second December back in the drizzle if he can help it. We thought maybe you'd come here instead. I stared at the saucepan. Christmas, in our house, had always been loud. Too much food. Too many relatives. Dad falling asleep on the sofa with a paper hat sliding off his head. I hadn't spent one without them in all my 28 years. Here? I echoed. In Spain, she clarified, as if there were another country they might mean. We can do something different. Prawns on the grill, beach in the morning. People do it here. It's very expat festive. Something in me recoiled at the phrase expat festive. I don't know if I can get the time off, I said. And flights will be expensive then too. We can help with the ticket, she said quickly. Use some of the rainy day fund. I gripped the spoon tighter. The idea of letting them pay for my flight made my chest tighten in a way I couldn't quite untangle. I'll think about it, I said. In the end, I didn't go. I told myself it was the money, the time, the cats. It was also pride. I didn't want to be the child trailing after her parents into their new life like a visitor. So I spent Christmas in Manchester. Noah came up for 2 days. We watched bad movies and burnt a turkey crown and pretended we didn't both feel the absence of our parents like a missing tooth you can't stop prodding with your tongue. On Christmas Day, my phone buzzed. Mum? Feliz Navidad. Miss you. Look. Photos. Them on the beach in Santa hats. Them at a long table full of food with their new friends. Them clinking glasses under fairy lights strung between palm trees. I sent them a picture of me and Noah in my tiny kitchen, holding up mugs of tea, faces flushed from the oven heat. Merry Christmas. Looks amazing. Love you. They texted back. Love you too. We'll call later. Later turned into the next day. Oh, sorry, we got caught up. We went to so-and-so's. Lost track of time, you know how it is. I did know how it was. I knew because I'd been the one left holding the phone. Something in me hardened, not a switch. More like a dial, turning down. I called less. So did they. The less we spoke, the easier it became not to. I told myself they were happy. They'd earned this. I didn't want to spoil it with my feelings. Months slipped by. Work stayed relentless. My own social life wobbled, then steadied in a new shape. I started dating someone, Tom, with kind eyes and a laugh that took up space. You should go, he said once, when I showed him yet another photo from yet another sunny terrace. Book it. A weekend. You'll hate yourself if you never see their life out there. I will, I said. Soon? Soon is a dangerous word. It stretches. It slips. It becomes never, if you're not careful. The thing that finally broke the pattern wasn't a fight. It was that photo in the grocery store line. The one with the stranger. The look at us. The fact that, for the first time, I felt like an optional extra in my own family's story. 3 days after that, Mum texted, Sorry we've been a bit quiet. Busy. How are you? Something in me, stretched thin for months, snapped. Chapter 4. The message I didn't plan to send. I stared at the screen. How are you? 3 little words that, coming from my parents, used to feel like a warm blanket. Lately they felt automated, like a default line sent between events. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Fine. Busy too. Loved the photo. It would have been so easy. Instead, for the first time in months, I told the truth. Or part of it anyway. Me. Honestly, I feel a bit forgotten. I watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, appear again. My heart thumped. Finally, Mum. Forgotten? Don't be silly, we talk all the time. What's brought this on? X. I laughed out loud, a short, bitter sound. We did not talk all the time. We pinged each other like satellites. Me. We don't, Mum. You're always busy. I see more of you on Instagram than I do on video calls. Sometimes I feel like you moved to Spain and retired from parenting too. I hit send before I could soften it, immediately regretted it. For a minute, there was nothing. Then, Mum, that's not fair. 3 words that might as well have been shouted. A second message followed. Mum, we've given you everything your whole life, Anna. We've earned a bit of happiness. I didn't realize I needed your permission to sit in the sun. My eyes stung. Me. I never said you hadn't. I'm not asking you to move back. I'm just telling you how it feels from here. It feels like I'm an afterthought. The dots appeared again. Mum. Your dad's upset. He says we ask you to visit all the time and you never do. It goes both ways, you know. Tom came into the room then, saw my face, and quietly sat beside me. You okay? He mouthed. I shook my head. Me. I know it goes both ways. I've been rubbish too. But you chose to move. You chose a life where I'm not part of your everyday. That's fine. Just own that. The reply took longer this time. Mum. We moved because we were tired and cold and sick of working ourselves into an early grave. We hoped you'd be happy for us. We didn't think you'd throw it in our faces. My stomach dropped. I hadn't said I wasn't happy for them, but hurt doesn't care about exact wording. Me. Can we talk about this on a call instead of text? No reply. An hour later, Dad rang. I took a deep breath and answered. Hi, love, he said. His tone was brisk, the way it gets when he's holding on to anger by its collar. Your mum's in bits. That wasn't my intention, I said, though of course part of it had been. I'd wanted them to feel something. You could have fooled me, he said. We're out here, miles away from everyone we've ever known, starting again at our age, and you're accusing us of forgetting you. You didn't forget me, I said. You just stopped seeing me. That doesn't even mean anything, he said. We talk, we send photos. We're in touch more than I ever was with your nan when I moved out. That's a low bar, Dad, I snapped. You barely called Nan. He sighed dramatically. What is this really about, Anna? He asked. Is this about that photo? The one with Claire? Claire? I repeated, the name hitting me like a slap. The blonde woman, he said. From the cafe. She's married to David. You've seen them before in pictures. They live down the road. Your mum thought you'd be happy we've made friends. Heat crawled up my neck. Oh, I said. I didn't know her name. Well, that's not our fault, he shot back. We've told you about them. Maybe if you picked up the phone once in a while. I do, I said. And so do you. That's not the point. Then what is? He demanded. The words came out before I could edit them. The point is, I said, voice shaking, you built a whole new life, which is brilliant, and I'm genuinely glad. But you seem to have slotted me into the same category as the old house and the old job. Past chapter. Closed. I hear more about quiz night and the gang than I do about how you actually are, or what you're scared of, or what you want from me now. Silence. Then, we didn't want to burden you, he said. You've got your own life. Your mum didn't tell you, but she's had some trouble with her hip. She didn't want you worrying. I squeezed my eyes shut. So, You didn't tell me she was in pain because you didn't want to worry me, I said slowly. But you're fine with me worrying that you don't care if I'm in your life at all. That's not what we think, he said. We just thought, you were busy. You always say you're busy. Because I am, I thought. Because I thought you were too. Because busy is easier than lonely or hurt or not sure how to be your daughter when you're in a different country living your best lives without me. Out loud, I said, how do we fix this? He exhaled. For the first time in the conversation, I heard something other than defensiveness in his voice. Tiredness. I don't know, he said. Your mum's crying in the kitchen. I'm on the balcony pretending everything's fine. The neighbours are probably listening. This is not how I pictured retirement. This is not how I pictured my late 20s, I said. We both laughed a little. Come out, he said suddenly. Don't overthink it. Book a flight. Next month. See it. See us. It's hard to feel connected over bloody WhatsApp. Are you sure? I asked. Of course I'm sure, he said, offended. You're our kid. We might be rubbish at showing it lately, but that didn't retire with the job. His choice of words made my throat tighten. Okay, I said. I'll look at flights. But if I'm coming, we don't pretend everything's perfect. We talk. Properly. No, I'm fine. You're turning into your mother, he grumbled. Fine. We'll talk. Love you, I said. He hesitated for half a second. Love you too, he replied. Even when you're a pain in the arse. After we hung up, I looked at Tom. Well, he asked. I think, I said slowly. I just agreed to go to Spain to have a fight with my parents about feelings. He grinned. Romantic, he said. Book it. You hate sunshine anyway. Might as well be emotionally uncomfortable at the same time. Chapter 5. Spain in real life. The first thing that hit me when I stepped out of Malaga airport was the light. It was brighter than anything we get back home. Sharp. Clear. Like someone had turned up the contrast on reality. I dragged my suitcase through the sliding doors, scanning the crowd. There they were. Mum, waving both arms like she was hailing a taxi. Dad, next to her, holding up a piece of paper that said, Anna, in huge letters, as if I might have forgotten my own name. I laughed despite myself. They looked older, not in a bad way, in a time has passed way. More lines around their eyes, more brown in their skin, more something in their posture I couldn't quite read. But they also looked happy. Mum wrapped me in a hug that smelled of sunscreen and perfume. You're here, she said into my hair. Look at you. You look tired. Are you eating? Nice to see you too, I said. Dad hugged me next, slapping my back. Not bad for EasyJet, he said approvingly. You survived. On the drive to their town, they pointed out landmarks like tour guides. That's where we get our fruit, best oranges you'll ever taste. Markets on Wednesdays down that street. There's the Irish pub. Don't look too closely. You'll see half of Birmingham. Their town, Estepona, was prettier than any of the photos. Narrow white streets with pots of flowers on the walls, a long promenade by the sea, lined with palm trees, old men playing dominoes in the shade. Their flat was on the 4th floor of a building that looked like all the others on the street. The lift made worrying noises, but got us there. Inside, it felt like them. Mum's cushions, Dad's ugly favourite lamp, the same painting of a boat that had hung above our sofa back home, now slightly crooked above a pale blue couch. On the balcony, you could see the sea if you leaned out a bit and squinted, just like Mum had said. It's smaller than the house, Mum apologised. It's nice, I said honestly. Cozy. We did the usual dance at first. How was the flight? Fine. How's work? Fine. We ate paella from a takeaway place they swore was better than any tourist rubbish, and I had to admit it was good. We walked on the promenade at sunset, the sky streaked pink and orange. Dad pointed out couples he knew. That's Mick and Joe. That's David and Claire. You know, from the photo. I glanced at the blonde woman. She waved. I waved back. Later, sitting on their balcony with a glass of wine, Mum cleared her throat. So, she said, are we going to talk about the messages, or pretend they were a weird glitch? Straight to it, then. I looked at the sky. I don't want to fight, I said. Neither do we, she replied. But I don't want you going home thinking we don't care about you, because that's not true. I know you care, I said. Logically, but feelings don't always listen to logic. Tell us then, Dad said. Properly. We promised not to get defensive. You got defensive on the phone, I pointed out. We were surprised, he said. And a bit guilty. Guilt makes people stupid. I snorted. Okay, I said. Here's how it feels from my side. I took a breath. It feels, I said slowly, like for most of my life, I was at the center of yours. Not in a spoiled way, just that everything revolved around me and my needs. You worked horrible shifts so I could do after-school clubs. You drove me to friends' houses. You came to every performance, every exam, every crisis. And then, in what feels like a pretty short time, I went from our daughter to a name you mention at tapas. Mum winced. That's not fair, she said. We talk about you all the time. People here probably know more about you than you'd be comfortable with. But do you talk to me? I asked. About you? About what's going on behind the photos? I see a highlight reel. Sunsets. Parties. I don't see the rest. Dad was quiet for once. We didn't want to worry you, he said. We thought you'd be glad to see us happy after all those years of moaning about work. I am glad, I said. Genuinely. But I also worry anyway. When you say nothing's wrong ever, I assume you're hiding something. When you say everything's perfect, I feel like there's no room for me to be honest about my own life, because I don't want to be the grey cloud over your blue sky. Mum blinked quickly. We did get a bit carried away, she admitted. When we first got here, it felt like being 20 again. Parties, new friends, no alarm clocks. Your dad stopped looking like he was about to explode. I forgot that while it felt like a new beginning for us, it might feel like something else for you. Like being left behind, I said. Just a bit. She flinched. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't think of it that way. I thought, she's busy, she's independent, she doesn't need us like she did when she was little. I thought we'd done our job. You did, I said. That's the problem. You did it so well, it feels like you decided, tick, daughter raised, next chapter, and forgot that I might still want parents, even if I don't need lifts anymore. Dad leaned back in his chair, looking at the street below. When we first got here, he said slowly, I felt guilty. Every time we sat in the sun on a Tuesday morning, I thought about you at your desk. Every time we had a long lunch, I pictured you eating a sandwich over your keyboard. Thanks, I said. That helps. Let me finish, he said. That guilt was heavy, so I pushed it away. Told myself you were fine, you had your life, we had ours. It was easier than sitting with the fact that our happiness might sting you. It did, I said, and then I felt guilty for feeling stung. because of course you were allowed to be happy. And round we went. Mum sniffed. I hate thinking we've hurt you, she said. I hate thinking I've made you feel bad for enjoying your retirement, I replied. We sat there, looking at each other across the small balcony table, the sea murmuring in the distance. So what do we do? Dad asked. We can't unmove. I don't want you to, I said. I want us to actually be in each other's lives, not just as background music. I want regular calls, proper ones, not just look at this paella. I want to know when you're scared, or lonely, or bored. I want you to know when I'm burned out, not find out because I send you a passive-aggressive text. They both smiled at that, a little. And, I continued, I need you to accept that I might not visit every time you want me to, that I have my own life and constraints, and that not visiting doesn't mean I don't care. Mum nodded. And we need you to accept, she said, that if we go to a party, instead of calling exactly when we said we would, it doesn't mean we love you less. It means we're old and distracted, and there was free wine. We laughed. Can we make a plan? I asked. Like an actual schedule, Sunday calls or something, so it's not always guesswork. Dad made a face. I hate schedules, he said. You loved them when I was revising for exams, I pointed out. That was different, he muttered. That was war. Mum reached for her phone. Sunday evening's your time, she suggested. 8 p.m. for you, 9 for us. Unless someone is in hospital or the house is on fire. That works, I said. And we promise, Dad added, to tell you if we're ill, or if something big happens. No more hiding things because we think we're being noble. Good, I said. And I promise to tell you if I'm not okay, instead of just saying busy and then resenting you for believing me. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Mum said, For what it's worth, you're not just something we talk about at tapas. No? I asked. No, she said. Sometimes we worry about you at tapas too. I laughed, really laughed, and it broke something open. The rest of the week wasn't a fairy tale. There were awkward moments. Times when I felt like a guest, not a daughter. Times when they started telling a story about someone I'd never met, and I felt like I'd arrived at a party halfway through. But there were also moments that felt like us. Mum teaching me how to make tortilla, telling me gossip about the neighbours. Dad and I watching football with Spanish commentary, laughing at how dramatic it sounded. Walking with them along the promenade between sea and town, feeling like I was straddling two versions of our lives. On my last night, we sat on the balcony again. I still don't love that you live here, I said honestly. Selfishly. I miss being able to pop round on a Tuesday. I miss rainy Sunday roasts. We miss you too, Mum said, selfishly. We miss when you were down the road, but we don't miss scraping ice off the car. Fair, I said. Dad clinked his glass against mine. We're learning, he said, how to be parents from a distance. No one trained us for this bit. Our parents just stayed put. No one trained me for having parents who join a tapas gang and forget what a jumper is, I replied. We're all improvising. We held our glasses up. To improvisation, Mum said. To trying again, I added. We drank to that. Chapter 6. Remembering each other. Back in Manchester, the drizzle felt less personal. Spain had become, in my mind, less of a rival and more of a context. When my parents sent photos now, I saw more, not just the sunshine, the lines around Mum's eyes when she was tired, The way Dad held his shoulder when his arthritis flared. We started our Sunday calls. Sometimes they were 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. Sometimes we talked about nothing important at all. Recipes, television shows, the ridiculous price of eggs. Sometimes we went deeper. Mum told me about her hip surgery. Dad told me about the night he woke up convinced he was having another heart scare and how scared he'd been until the doctor said it was just indigestion. I told them about my panic attack on the tram, about how I'd finally told my boss I couldn't work 60-hour weeks anymore. They listened. They didn't always know what to say. Sometimes Dad tried to solve things. Sometimes Mum cried. Sometimes we just sat in silence, watching each other breathe. A year after my first visit, they came back for a week, not at Christmas, with intention. "We don't want to lose the knack of being in our own country," Dad said, "and your grandmother misses complaining to my face." We had a proper Sunday roast. We argued over nothing. We slipped back into old rhythms and then out of them again. "Do you ever think of moving here?" Mum asked me one evening, after the others had gone home. "To Spain?" I said. "Sometimes, when the boiler breaks." "And the rest of the time?" she asked. "I like my life," I said. "Mostly. My friends. My job, when it isn't trying to kill me. Tom. I don't want to uproot all of that just to be near you." That sounds harsh, but it's true. She nodded. "I wouldn't want you to," she said. "We didn't move so you'd follow. We moved because we needed something to be different. That doesn't mean we wanted you to be left behind." "I know that now," I said. "Most days. On the days when I scrolled through their beach photos and felt that old sting, I reminded myself, you went. You saw. You talked. They're not living there instead of loving you. They're living there as well as loving you. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes they still missed calls because they were out. Sometimes I still ignored my phone because I was tired. Sometimes weeks went by faster than any of us realized. But we had a thing to come back to now. A promise made on a small balcony overlooking a sliver of sea. That we would try, clumsily and imperfectly, to remember each other across borders. That retirement to Spain didn't have to mean retirement from being my parents. That being their daughter didn't have to mean I stayed in place while they moved on. We were, all three of us, learning to hold two truths at once. They had earned their sunshine, and I had earned a place in it, even from far away. Sometimes, on grey Manchester afternoons, my phone buzzes. "Mum, look at this sunset. Miss you. Sunday chat later?" Attached is a photo of the sky over their town, washed in impossible colours. I send back a picture of my own sky, more muted, still beautiful if you squint. "Looks amazing," I write. "Can't wait to hear about it. Love you." And this time, when I say it, I don't feel like an afterthought. I feel like a daughter whose parents live in Spain, not abandoned, not forgotten. Just farther away. And somehow, finally, still mine.